You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
And hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Grant McAuley, Jake Mastroianni with you after what was one of the craziest and I'll say by the end of it, one of the most frustrating games the Braves have played in a 2023 that otherwise has been, I would say, pretty spectacular. But this was not a night where spectacular would be the adjective that would describe the end result for the Braves. They put up 13 runs. The problem was the Arizona Diamondbacks put up 16 runs. So a loss in game one of a 3-game series to get things going. But we'll see if the Braves are able to do the thing they've done this year, which is prove to be resilient, maybe bounce back and make a series of this thing against Arizona, because it feels eerily reminiscent of the last time these two clubs met a little bit earlier this year. We'll get into all of that, the particulars of this game. A huge night for Austin Riley, another struggling outing, a struggle for Bryce Elder would be, I think, putting it lightly, as his last couple have been pretty rough. And, of course, get you set up for game 2 of the series, which comes your way on Wednesday. Before we get started with all that, of course, I'm Grant McAuley. He is Jake Mastroianni, and this is the Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, and make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Jake, it's been a hot minute since we've been able to do one of these things, so welcome back. How do you like the new arrangement that we have for you on night number 1? The final result, I would guess, is a little bit less than to be desired.
Yeah, we were saying before we came on, wish I'd have come back to a better game than this one. This was one of those games where the Braves won it. It probably would have been one of the most fun games of the year, but when you lose it in the fashion that you did, it becomes one of the worst and most frustrating games of the year for a fan.
Yeah, it really is. And understandably, I mean, this was kind of a roller coaster ride of emotions and reactions and all that thing. And I mean, look, before this, coming out of the All-Star break and losing 3 out of 4, and of course they lost prior to the All-Star break, the finale against the Tampa Bay Rays. So the Braves haven't been in too many places this year where they have lost 3 games in a row. They certainly haven't been in any place beyond the 4-game losing streak. That hasn't happened in several seasons. But either way, they want to get back in the win column, and they've got a chance to do that tomorrow. But as is our duty here on the POSTCAST, the name says it, we got to go over it. Inside the box score of game number 93 of the year. For the Diamondbacks, they ended a losing streak of theirs. 53-42 now, 16 runs on 16 hits, no errors, and 7 men left aboard. Braves are now 61-32, 29 games over 500, 13 runs on 11 hits. They made 3 errors. We'll talk all about those. Only 1 man left on base. Miguel Castro picked up the win in relief. He's 5-3. Raisel Iglesias gets the loss, but I think it was a team effort in losing this game in a lot of different ways. And Kevin Ginkel picked up the save, his first for Arizona. 3 hours, 5 minutes it lasted. 41,100 were on hand to see it. Jake, let's start with Bryce Elder in this one, because I think that's one of the big takeaways from this game. And the offense kind of did its thing, but for Bryce Elder, this is back-to-back starts where he has really struggled, didn't make it out of the third, 7 runs allowed. The defense did not help. Let me just go ahead and highlight that and then underscore it. He wasn't great, but the defense was also not great. It's just kind of an amalgamation of things that didn't go right for Bryce Elder in this one.
We've talked about it before with Bryce Elder. He can't get away with pitches out of the middle of the plate like maybe a Spencer Strider can. He doesn't throw 98, 99. So in order for him to be effective, he has to live on the edges, and just too many pitches that are left over the middle of the plate, too many sinkers that were left up in the zone. He got hit pretty hard in this game. Now, the game started off with a little bloop sinker and then a ball that Corbin Carroll spiked into the ground that bounced over first baseman. Maybe that should have been a sign of bad things to come, but he did ultimately get hit pretty hard in this game. Defense, obviously, as you mentioned, I know we'll talk more about, really let him down. He could have very easily gotten through those first 3 innings and only allowed 3 runs, and perhaps could have gone even further in the game if the defense makes some plays behind him. And that's another thing with a pitcher like Bryce Elder, who he did have 4 strikeouts in this game, but not typically a guy that's going to get the swings and misses, going to get the strikeouts. He's going to rely on that defense behind him and getting that weak contact, which, again, he didn't get tonight. He left too many pitches out of the middle of the plate and got hit hard. But it is a little concerning. We thought maybe there'd be some regression for Bryce Elder in the second half, just because I didn't think he's going to be a 2 ERA pitcher for the rest of the season or the whole season. But these last 2 outings now, they got to be just a little bit concerning, but I still think, he's a solid, I think, middle of the rotation pitcher. I think he's had a long enough stretch now to prove he can be that, but certainly got to tighten some things up, work on the command of those pitches. Because like I said, he has to live on the edges, getting that weak contact. He can't become a one-pitch pitcher and hitters sit on that sinker and then he leave it out over the middle of the plate, which happened a lot tonight.
Yeah, and that can be problematic for a pitcher like Bryce Elder, as you mentioned, doesn't have overpowering stuff. He kind of works on the margins of the strike zone, and when he does have that good movement, it creates just kind of an uncomfortable at bat for hitters, and they don't hit him hard. And this one, there were a lot of hits. There were also a lot of bad plays that happened behind him. There was 2 errors on one play. That obviously was not great. The Corbin Carroll triple, that was, as you mentioned, maybe a harbinger of how this whole game was going to go with weird bounces. An error later in the game against Matt Olson helped, the Arizona club grab some runs against Bryce Elder. It felt like that was kind of the final nail in the coffin. But going back to Elder, 7 hits, 7 runs, 5 of them earned, a walk, 4 strikeouts, only 1 home run allowed. But still, it just felt like as things started to snowball in a 5-run first inning for Arizona, that it was going to be one of those nights. If not for the Braves, then certainly for Bryce Elder overall. And back-to-back bad starts, 3 1/3 innings of 7 earned runs against Tampa Bay. I don't know if you agree or not, and I'll be interested to hear kind of how you look at it, but I feel like the Arizona lineup and the Tampa Bay lineup are 2 teams that might be just a little bit tougher for a pitcher like Bryce Elder. They just seem to have the kind of hitters that will make a pitcher like Bryce Elder pay. They're just pesky enough. They're just powerful enough to give you a kind of a bad run, if you will, if they've got everything going and Bryce Elder doesn't have things going the way he needs to, again, on the margins of the strike zone.
And I think another thing that plays into the Diamondbacks' favor is their speed. Like we said with Bryce Elder, somebody that's going to put the ball in play and a lot of times on the ground. And you saw it. I mean, in this game, the speed that the Diamondbacks have, I think that played to their advantage in this as well. Diamondbacks were also struggling a little bit coming in, so maybe they were due for some of this good luck and to have some of things go their way. But yeah, agree. Obviously the Rays are one of the better offenses in all of baseball. Diamondbacks have been for most of this year, other than a little bit of rough patch that they've hit here lately. So they're a really good lineup up and down with a lot of guys who have speed, have power. Saw what Christian Walker is able to do in this game, a couple of home runs. So yeah, not a great matchup for him because again, he's looking to get that weak contact, and there's a lineup full of hitters that were making a lot of hard contact and have for most of the year. And you combine that with their speed, and not going to be, a great matchup for many pitchers, but typically, certainly not for Bryce Elder, who we mentioned doesn't have that overpowering dominant type stuff.
Yeah, and you mentioned the defense is just so important for a pitcher who is relying on the ball being put in play more times than not. 4 strikeouts in 2 2/3 innings is not necessarily you expect as far as ratio is concerned, but you'll sacrifice all the strikeouts for the guy that was giving you 5, 6 or more innings all the way up until his final start before the All-Star break. And of course, this one on this night, maybe a mechanical adjustment, maybe something, more subtle than that. We'll kind of find out how Bryce Elder's able to make those adjustments, because that is exactly what the game of baseball is. A lot of things were going on for the Atlanta offense in this one, clearly on a night that you scored 13 runs, and we're going to talk all about that after I tell you about one of our great sponsors, which of course is Game Time. This episode of the Braves Postcast brought to you by Game Time, the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event, with exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price, and if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag tickets without the stress at Game Time. Download that Game Time app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create that account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. A lot of folks bought tickets to this Braves game, and they got the offense that they have come to expect all season long, Jake. 13 runs. Austin Riley, let's just go ahead and talk about that one. We already went through what didn't go right for the Braves on the mound for Bryce Elder. The bullpen also struggled behind him. It's a rough night for Raisel Iglesias. Ben Heller had a rough one, as did Kirby Yates, and giving up a run, and they all added up. And then you throw in the defense, and it wasn't so great. But how about Austin Riley? Career-high 7 RBI, 2 home runs in this one, 3 hits overall. He's been looking for a game like this for a while, and hopefully this is something that gets him going here in the second half, because the Braves would love to get a little something from Austin Riley to get themselves right and rolling on through the month of July.
Yeah, you look at the Braves offense and you look at maybe who could be looking to improve in the second half. And not that Austin Riley was necessarily bad in the first half, but so many Braves hitters had great first halves, you're thinking, okay, if some of them regress a little bit, who are some players that perhaps could go off down the stretch? And Riley, you look at as one of those. He's batting third in your lineup, so you certainly hope that's the case. 4 hard hit balls in this game. Mentioned the 2 big home run. I like the one who got the changeup down and in, was able to sit back on it and just strong enough to put it into the bullpen in left field. Some big home runs in this one. Obviously, they all were in a tight back and forth game. So love this outcome for Austin Riley. Again, I think he's the one guy that you look at. Everybody else in this lineup has really done what we expected them to do, maybe even a little bit more this season. But if Austin Riley gets going, batting third in your lineup, 13 runs, this offense is as good as it needs to be, but you get your number 3 hitter going like that and showing off the power that he's capable of. He hadn't hit a home run since early July. So you get him going, start getting the home runs coming as well with Austin Riley. I don't know what other level this offense can go to, but I think getting that from Austin Riley could take them even to another level.
Yeah, he's a guy that's quietly on pace for a 30-homer season, but as you mentioned, it's kind of been uneven at the very least for Riley, just some peaks and valleys, of course, but a 2-homer, 7 RBI game is a good one to get right. He's got 18 homers on the year now. Orlando Arcia also homered in this one. He's got 8. He went 2 for 4, couple of runs scored, couple of runs knocked in. Ronald Acuna Jr. went 2 for 5, stole his major league leading 44th base of the season. He scored a couple of runs, just missed a homer. It was off the top of the wall late in the game. I think we saw the Diamondbacks, have given them some credit too. They played a little bit of defense and well-played balls, even when the Braves put them in play and were able to get hits off of them, playing them nicely off the wall. We saw on the Acuna one. But how about Sean Murphy having an extra base hit taken away from him by Alec Thomas early in the game? As you look for just little things that went right for Arizona and didn't go right for the Braves, they played a little bit of defense, and the Braves did not play the defense they needed to.
No, they didn't. You really kind of line it out, and I conservatively did this before we jumped on. The Braves potentially let 6 runs score because of misplays defensively. And you look at the runs that the Diamondbacks potentially took away by some of the good defensive plays they made. And Kembalar made a couple of good plays in left field as well to save some run. You got to give him props there. But again, the Braves could have easily won this game by 6 or 7 runs if they played good defense. And obviously you scored 13 runs, you probably should, but bottom line is they didn't. They gave the Arizona Diamondbacks, a bunch of free outs, and for a good team that was looking to break out, you just can't do that. I also happened to be listening to the Diamondbacks broadcast at one point. They said this is the first time they've ever given up 12 runs in a game and won. So a little bit of unfortunate history that the Braves set there on the Diamondback side.
Yeah, you don't want to be on that side of it for sure. I'll see that one and one up another one. Mark Bowman tweeted this out of MLB.com right before we got started tonight. This is the first time the Braves have lost a game after scoring 13 runs since 1990. That was the year they drafted Chipper Jones, and that was, by my count, about 8 years before the Arizona Diamondbacks became a thing in the Major League Baseball ranks and joined as an expansion club. So some crazy things obviously happened in this one. It's also the first time the Braves have allowed 16 runs since 2017. It just goes to show you do a lot of winning. You're typically not on the wrong side of a score like this with little caveats and factoids like that for both of these teams. You mentioned Kevin Pillar came into the game. He was 1 for 2. He just missed a home run as well when he came in, but it was because Sam Hilliard tweaked something running to first base. I don't really have a big update on Sam just yet, but this just goes with Eddie Rosario nursing a hamstring deal. That's why Hilliard was getting the start. Forrest Wall got called up from AAA Gwinnett. Congratulations to him. We'll see if he gets a little bit of big league time, between the white lines where he'd very much like to be after spending 9 years or a decade or so, I guess, in the minor leagues at this point. But putting all that aside, the Braves have kind of been the walking wounded in the second half, Jake. They've lost key relievers. They're losing just different pieces of their team, and it may not be for a long period of time, but this stuff all starts to add up. And it's all kind of coming to a head right about the time that Alex Anthopoulos could be out there, maybe looking for a little bit of help, but he's not going to be able to swing 6 or 7 trades to fix all the maladies of this club. And it's just going to be interesting to see how all of this pans out.
It is. And obviously the trade deadline coming up, and maybe you're starting to see more needs that are being more or displaying themselves now, especially in the bullpen. You do have some injuries there, some key guys you're hoping to get back, AJ Benter, and all the Dylan Lee, others, Jesse Chavez, you're hoping to get back in that bullpen. But certainly Alex Anthopoulos is going to be working the phones, doing the best he can to improve this team. Really hate that for Sam Hilliard, a guy who had a really good run earlier in the season and then just lost playing time with everybody getting healthy, and then it's just been sitting on the bench for like 2 months, and you get in there, get an opportunity, and now he gets hurt. So I really hate that for him, but Braves are a little bit banged up right now. I guess if you want to look on the bright side, would rather it happen now than even later in the season, but certainly it's going to be a difficult trade deadline for Alex Antablos, trying to figure out who can they bring in, who are they hoping to get back injured, but trying to build the best roster obviously possible to win a World Series.
Yeah, they're definitely looking for that. And as you look at the standings in the National League, the Braves at 29 games over 500 still have a 9.5 game lead in the NL East because the Marlins lost an extra innings to the St. Louis Cardinals. So every once in a while, a better team loses to a lesser team, or you lose a game that you really, shouldn't, and you win a game that you shouldn't. The Braves have had a little bit of that. It doesn't take the sting off of one of these where you feel like you score 13 runs, you ought to have a chance to win. But as you laid out earlier, there was a pretty big swing, conservative or otherwise, on how many runs were just heaped on as far as the swing between these two clubs by the Braves not playing the defense that they needed to in this one. One other note, and then we'll look ahead to game number 2 of this series. Travis d'Arnaud signing a 1-year extension. He'll be back in 2024 at $8 million with a club option for 2025. Just quickly, Jake, I think we've both come to know, and as you heard Alex Anthopoulos say earlier today, and I know I spoke with him earlier, it was, this is a glue guy for us. This is somebody that means a lot to this club. They're happy to have him back. And, hey, Travis is producing on the field as well. So it's a nice little partnership between these two parties.
Yeah, easy decision here. They were probably going to pick up the team option for next year anyway at the same price. So just add another year, another option year to that. Makes a lot of sense. Travis d'Arnaud has become one of the leaders of this team, best backup catcher in all of baseball, and that tandem that he pairs there with Sean Murphy. So it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have him around, and we'll see if Travis d'Arnaud might just happen to be in the lineup in game 2 of the series as the Braves and Diamondbacks meet in what can only be, I don't know if it can live up to this one in terms of 29 runs being scored, but we'll go ahead and get ready for whatever it is that comes our way. These two teams have played some crazy games thus far, Jake. I mean, the Braves with the Eddie Rosario Grand Slam to take 2 out of 3 in that series a little bit earlier this year. We'll see what they have up their sleeve with Charlie Morton on the mound. He's 10-6, 3.20 ERA. I feel like Charlie was really finding himself, really coming into his own heading into the All-Star break. Ryan Nelson will be on the mound for Arizona, 5-5 with a 4.98 ERA. Really just need Charlie Morton to go out there, cover some innings, and give the Braves a quality start and then some.
Yeah, he's been on a good little roll here lately, but like you said, they need him to really give them some length in this one. The pitching staff right now is just really banged up. Lost Colby Allard the other day as well. So really need Charlie Morton to give them some length here. Need the offense to put up 13 runs, maybe more again. Hopefully not if Charlie Morton is on his game, but big outing here for Charlie Morton. It seems like these Diamondback series are always pivotal series in the season for the Braves. Typically, it sends them on a good run, so hopefully that's the case here. Maybe this game will be a wake-up call for the Braves to kind of snap out of whatever funk they're in right now and get going once again.
Yeah, maybe they can just kind of coast down the hill and get to a rolling start and start heading on to whatever the next hot streak might be for the Braves. Morton versus Nelson in game 2 of the series. Braves and Diamondbacks meet at 7:20 p.m. Eastern time on a Wednesday at Truist Park. That'll wrap things up for this edition of the Braves Postcast. As always, we appreciate you riding along with us. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube to Locked On Sports Atlanta. Hit the bell to get notified. Leave your comments, good, bad, or indifferent. But just make sure that you tell a friend that you check out these postcasts after just about every Braves game we can get to. We try to have you covered right here. So make sure you got those alerts on, and make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Once again, great to have Jake back with us. We'll see if the Braves can give him a better finish in game 2 of this series. 16-13 Diamondbacks over the Atlanta Braves in game 1 of this 3-game set. We will catch you again after game 2. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We'll catch you next time. So long, everyone.